it's me, it's one of the phone friends welcoming you to Starfleet Universe on call. And tonight, well, it's just moi. So if you're expecting Barry, I'm sorry to tell you, Barry is not here. Where he is, I do not know. I'm assuming he probably had an early day tomorrow, or he had a late night tonight. Probably late night tonight would be my guess. At his job, wherever he is at this moment in whatever part of the country he's currently at. So, to say the very least, when it comes to topics, I'm drawing a complete and utter blank. So, we're going to, I'd say we're going to roll the dice and see what happens. But I don't, rolling the dice assumes that you actually have choices that you have in mind. But we'll still see how it goes, shan't we? It's going to be, so, obviously, there's the old stalwarts of the podcast. You know, I could talk about SFB Online. I could talk about Warlord. I could talk about ADB. I could talk about so many things. I'm just going to mention one thing really off the top that's going to be kind of off topic for this podcast, but I just want to recognize something. Hey, Chris. And that is that I'm getting to this age. Just to let you know, I just had my birthday. I'm now 56. Yes. Where more and more people that I know are dying. Now, the last person actually was Mike. I forgot his last name at the moment, and I apologize. I didn't know him well. I just know of him. And we got to get. Thanks, Dave. Yeah, I adjusted the lighting. But anyway, I didn't know him that well. I know he'd come to the gamers of winter and games of summer. He always had a lot of fun. He brought his daughter many times. They stopped coming around the time she started going to college. Now, I follow him and his daughter on Facebook. And he died suddenly of a heart attack this past week. So it's like, okay, I'm getting to that point where people are starting to die, and it's like, it makes me feel old. Not because because I'm getting to that point in my life where it's normal that friends and people start dying. Now, obviously, I'm only 56, so in this day and age, that's considered kind of young. You know, it is, not old, but I'm not a spring chicken, but at the same time, not really old. You know. But anyway, and I guess, as I've always mentioned, which is old is the way you feel. And I just seeing that just made me feel old. But whatever. Moving over to the topic for this evening, I've been one of the things actually I as I showed last week, which was the new web server for Starfleet Warlord, what it's going to be looking like, which to me is easier to maintain. I think it will do things much better. I have to do a little work on the back end a bit before I can. There's a couple things I have to do for that website before I actually can do the big switch. One, I have to make sure that all the accounts the current active accounts that are currently on the current website are now moved over to the new website. And at that point, if people want to reset their passwords, do things like that, they're going to have to do that themselves. assuming that their email address is correct. If their email, I'm probably gonna have to have some, probably send out an email saying that, okay, if you can't, if your email address has changed from your account, and I'm gonna try to do my best to make sure that at least the active players, which are around, there aren't a tremendous amount of active players Starfleet Warlord, but for those that are active, they have their updated email address in their account at the new location. So I got do a little work on the back end, which is at this point the back end is mainly that when you use PayPal, it'll automatically attach it to your account. So because all the rest works, it does redirect, does create the link and redirect you to PayPal. It does allow you to do what you currently do, which is actually put in initial orders, and it will send out the proper email to your account that you've registered for, that you actually have an account with the proper password and all that kind of thing. You have to be logged in and all. And of course, then you can look at your information. Now, the big change here is that if you want to change your information, that's one thing I've got to do, is I have to look up to see how, because I'm using a third party for authentication and authorization. So I need to find out, okay, what's a link I can give people so that they can say, click, if they need to update their account information, they click on this and they can update their account information. So I need to figure that one out. Sign-ups, I currently, when you click on the login button, it gives you a login page, but also one of the tabs on that login page is also a sign-up page. It's a sign-up tab. So that one I need to, so it allows people to sign up, which is fine, but at the same time, one of the ways I limit currently what people recognize as being signed up is that they paid. It's $1. It's $1 from PayPal. I use that dollar, as I mentioned before, I use that $1 just as a verification step. Because unless you're willing to pay $1, I'm not asking for $20 to register for an account. I'm asking $1. If you can pay $1, and come on, you know how much of that money I'm actually getting? Not that much. I'm getting maybe, I think I might be getting 90 cents of the dollar. But the idea is just to discourage the whole spammy access. Now, obviously, the problem is I still have, if I go to my website and I go look at the accounts that have been created that are not verified, I've got a lot of crappy accounts, and those I need to clean up. And that's why I have to do some of the work for the back end. Hopefully I can get some of that work done this weekend, at least some of it. I don't expect to get it all done, but so far, I haven't heard anyone, and I posted this up on the Facebook page. And on that Facebook page, I asked, this is what the new site's going to look like, and I wanted people's opinion. I'm not sure if I don't think I explicitly said that, but that was the implied thing. So far, I've got 2 thumbs up. In that, the people have used it and they say they can use it, and that's important. There are actually some additional, as you saw last week, I've got to work on some of the links because some of the links don't work. So, and I don't know why at the moment. My guess is that I added the link and I forgot to add the resource behind the link. So we'll just have to wait and see on that. But anyhow, so Start with the World that I was going to be starting up. Actually, I just got a new player, and we're going through a Linners game, and I forget the person's name, but basically that person, He emailed me, which was unusual. It wasn't through the contact form, which I would have seen. He went directly to my email. Now the question is, how did he find my email address? I don't know. I don't remember. I don't think I have it on the current website. I might have it, and I don't remember. It's been a while since I've updated the website. All the more reason to switch to a new website, because the one thing about the new website is a lot of it is it's generated using this template called Jekyll. Sorry, apologize. And that produces a static website. What's the great thing about the static website for me is that most of the website I have is a static website. There's only a little bit that's not static, and that little bit is what I had worked on and got going. So that was written in JavaScript to show, the different show the pieces and so forth, and have so you can log in and all. It does that interaction in JavaScript. So, and since the actual website itself, the interactive part of it is very limited as it is. Hey, Mike's Tiny Friday here. I'm not sure why you would do that, but thank you for joining us. So that's what's going to happen with Fleet Warlord. Obviously we're going to be starting a new game. One of the current games is going to be completing very soon. I meant to start a new game at the very beginning of January, and I totally flipped. I get busy with other things and just truly forget about stuff, and I apologize for that. I'm trying to keep up to date with other things, But anyway, SFB Online, as I pointed out before, I've worked on an alternate server backend, which is very light. I like it because it's a very light. I might actually have. It's one of those things like any other software project. You write it the first time, and you really should rewrite it. You need to do it again. Why? Because you learn about all the things you did wrong the first time around. And and the second time around, you do it much better. I'm debating with myself whether I'm going to take the project and open source it, because of it. I'm not sure how many people actually would be interested in such a simple piece of code. Maybe it's of interest to some people. Obviously, some of the architecture is. There are certain things I know that I would need to really scale this sucker up. I would need to do. There's lots of stuff that I would need to really scale this thing high. And if you get to those points, it gets really complicated. I'm not sure if I want to do that. Obviously, I can do what I did with. I have one open source project which I created, which I'm the only person who maintains, and I haven't done any work on it for a couple of years now. Which was, I call it text to I think it's text to DB. Yeah, a text database, text-based database. That's what it was. Text-based database. That's how often I think about this project, and that is because I like basically it's a record manager that uses CSV files as its format. So currently I have two versions. I've got a Perl version and I've got a Java version. So if anyone wants to use it, feel free. Wow. So and this one, it might be the same. Might be, I might write it and no one ever touches it, and that's fine. If no one wants it, that's fine. I put it out there. If people want to use it as a basis for something else, feel free. Because I believe in BSD licenses, and I'm not sure what the difference between a BSD and an MIT license is. In my mind, they're both around the same. The big thing for me is that you can take any code, in this case, my open source projects, you can take the code and you can use it however the heck you want to do it. The incentive to give back is that after you actually incorporate it into the main project, and it's not just a fork, you don't have to, you have more than one person actually maintaining it. Now, obviously, in my project at the moment, it's just me. So, it'd be me and whoever else wanted to use my code. Is my code the greatest code in the world? No, it's not. I think that if I did it, I don't, honestly, I think about that code and I go, I wouldn't change a thing. When it comes to architecturally speaking, it's the way I want it to be. The only thing I might change at all, and I'm not sure this is truly the case, that is the column types. I might change the way I define the column types. Because the tough part is that you've got Java and you've got Perl, and they're when it comes to data types, it gets kind of squirrely between those two. Yeah, because the funny part is I was looking for a database and I never did find it. Now, it's possible someone knows about one and can say, oh, yeah, you can just use this one. Well, I never found the one that which I wanted. And I might write it up myself because it was basically a very slim, trim, almost record manager basis. It's not so much so that it's not what was it? Key-based storage. How NoSQL stuff uses key-based storage these days. It would probably be more of basically record manager based. Because I want to bet the reason why I think back to record manager based is just because that's when I first started development. Started working for a company. That's what we had. We didn't have SQL for DOS-based programs. We had no SQL. So we used a record manager. In this case, the record manager was Btrieve, which was actually kind of cool. It was another thing like D-based, to a certain, but it was all binary and all. It was interesting. I liked Btrieve. So. Yeah, I looked up Btrieve. Like, I looked at the licensing. It's just through the freaking roof. It's like, no, I don't think I'll ever use Btrieve commercially because the licensing fee is just too freaking high. Because the big thing for me was that I wanted something like not MySQL. I wanted something like SQLite, SQLite. But something that could work, that was very light. It doesn't have to support a huge number of transactions, but something simple. But having a REST API as the front end. Now, someone out there will tell me, oh, well, you should look at this. And the thing is, here's the gotcha. Before the REST base, what I wanted it was just basically a record manager kind of API, so that you can have multiple programs accessing that quote database, but it's not. But it doesn't. It's not running a database process. Again, as I said, it's a record manager, and the record manager would have the locks and so forth. So multiple programs could vie for accessing the table. And that's the beauty of the text-based database, is that you could lock it, but it's going to be locking single rows, and each row was a single file. Because I figured, that's the big thing. You don't need big files anymore. You can have lots of small files, and that should do it. I think the current file systems can handle that. Though I have to double check, because I think the problem with most file systems is there's a limit to the number of entries for a single directory, which could cause issues. But anyhow, onward and forward. When it comes to SFB Online, obviously the one thing I need to work on, and hopefully I can get to work on this weekend, is better support for give me a sec here, because I got asked for a few weeks ago. Actually, it's coming up almost a month, if not a month ago at this point, and I apologize for not working on it earlier. Just give me a sec. Soldier, that's what. Soldier, I got better support for the Soldier. That was it. I had to bring up my email program and check on that. So I can have better support. Now, supposedly certain things don't work, and I don't know how, especially because the person, I think it was Matt, described that it works fine in the tournament, but it doesn't work fine in the standard SFB room, and that should not occur. I'm not sure why. Only possibility I can think of is the loading of the types. That's the only possibility I can think of, because the tournament can have a different collection of default types that are available for a type of weapon. Default missiles or plasma or drones, or what else are there? There's multiple things about that. So yeah, that's one thing I need to work on. Now, the funny part is one thing I was thinking about today when it comes to I was thinking about gaming. Big surprise. And when was it? I was driving my car, and I was listening to this one podcast, and that was it. I was listening to Mac Break Weekly, and Alex Lindsay was just talking about how he was talking about how there's so much, too many games are basically copy of previous games, and I've heard that from other people too. And I can understand that. And there was one, I forget how this came to mind, which was Hogan's Heroes. For those of you much younger than me, Hogan's Heroes was a TV series back in the 70s, I think. I'm thinking of it. And it was basically, it was about this prison camp in Germany. And it was a comedy. It was lots of fun. And I was thinking about that because the thing with Hogan's Heroes, the weird part about Hogan's Heroes with this camp and being a comedy, they had Sergeant Schultz, I know nothing, that, and Colonel Clint. Yeah, I think Clint. I think it's Clint. I'm sure somebody was late 60s. Chris was late 60s, so I was listening to reruns. Okay. But anyway, I thought of a game. 'Cause to me, that's a challenging game, because the thing is with Hogan's Heroes, one of the things about the game, about that TV series, which was very interesting to me, is that you've got a prison camp run basically by the prisoners for the most part. You know, you got Colonel Klink, you got Sergeant Schultz, you've got these characters that are, they're funny, but they're protecting the prisoners to make sure the prisoners don't escape. But of course, invariably they'll get this special prisoner come in that they have to somehow help escape. That's not every single episode was like that, but every once in a while you hit an episode like that. But here's the thing. Hogan's Heroes, in that you want to make sure Colonel Klink was still there, was always there in charge, because he was very pliable and not very smart. And Sergeant Schultz also not the brightest bulb in the bunch, but it was funny. It was great. But here's the thing: that the prisoners had to make sure that the prison camp didn't get shut down, because they're basically using it as a point of operation for the Allies. And because of that, so I was thinking about a crazy game. The game would be something along the lines of, you are Hogan, and you're trying to manage this camp, have it so that the camp, even though there's prisoners that do escape, that the camp is not shut down for being, Klink is not moved to another camp because of he's so incompetent that he's letting his prisoners escape. And so for, at the same time, so you have a prison camp where you're trying to keep it in business. You're not trying to have it so everyone escapes. You have to, in my mind, the goal here would be that you have to make sure certain people escape, not too many escape, and the camp, so the camp will survive, and so you can still use that as a base of operation, So it to me, that comes the ultimate challenge is that you usually in games like that, the whole idea is to maximize the number of people who escape. No, you can't maximize the number of people who escape. The goal is to keep the prison in business. Which to me, I found that one of those things that I thought about and went, that is a neat idea for a game. Obviously, in theory, we could do something along those lines for SFB, using Prime Directive, and that could be a Prime Directive. I was going to say scenario, but that's not the proper term for RPG. I'm just going to say scenario for the moment, but because you get the idea. You get the idea. But I think that'd be kind of an interesting way to go. Obviously, one thing I have to work on SFB Online is going to be FedCom and get that library done. And I apologize for not getting all those ships that have had for months now into the library. It's not easy. I have to go through them all and look through them. But it's going to remain the same number as long as I don't work on them. So anyhow, obviously, everyone's heard about the medical history. That's one thing that got me thinking about how old I am, because of A to B is getting up to the point where the employees are getting up there in age. The owner, the marketing person, which is Gene Sexton. You got Steve Petrick, who's been with Steve for a while, and of course, Steve Petrick is older than I am, and Lord knows it's been, I don't remember how many years. I can't remember how many years it's been since I went to Origins, and yeah, Mike, that I agree. It's definitely tough news about the A to B staffers. I'm as I told you guys before, you peeps, before, and that is, I'm not concerned about, if Steve Cole passes away. At some point he will. It's facts of life. I'm not concerned about, all of a sudden losing my license and I have to shut everything down. I don't see that happening. So I have no concern there. But, things like that, as I said, make me feel old. Because I remember going to Origins, and I was helping Steve Petrick multiple times, because when it comes to later on, after I got my Rated Ace card, and I switched over, because as soon as I got my Rated Ace card, to me that was my goal. Boom, got my Rated Ace card. After that, I would go to Origins, not to play SFB that much. I'd play every once in a while. Steve Petrick is doing good. He's doing good. He's coherent. Steve Cole, talk to him. You can have a conversation, and he's thinking about to see if we can get some of the rules questions from maybe the BBS and give it to him, because he still remembers the rules, which is good. Obviously with a stroke and all, you never know if there's any kind of memory loss and things like that. But so he's doing pretty good. Yeah, but I'm just remembering Steve Petrick, and when I became a judge, when I first became a judge, this was in the years of Joe Butler. Joe Butler was the head judge, basically. Next to Petrick, he was the head judge, because he'd been there forever and ever. And then, let me see, I forgot how many years ago it was that he died. And it was, which was sad for all of us. I forget what the cause of death was, and I guess it doesn't really matter. He died too young, no matter what, because he was probably around my age. So he died way too young. And then after he died, I, for the most part, picked up Joe's mantle. For the most part, Steve Petrick was still head judge, but when Steve Petrick wasn't around, because he can't always be around, I was kind of, since I was a senior judge, just because of I was there for probably the longest period of time. Because until the ADV stopped going to Origins, I went to Origins every single year. So it should be. I remember when Steve Petrick being there, and him not being, he was, full. He was. I was gonna say healthy, but. Vim and vigor, he could move around very well and so forth, especially compared to Steve Cole. Steve Cole was, at that point in time, was having problems walking, hopefully, with the weight loss that Steve Cole has, they'll help his body, because he had way too much weight on him. Knees and all that, because Lord knows that's one thing I still remember. It's probably been like 15 years now, where my doctor said, look, it's not a question if you're going to have knee surgery. You're going to have knee surgery. You're going to have knee surgery either in your 50s or your 60s. Your choice. So I remember that, because that was when my knee started, my left knee started to hurt it. That's weird. But anyhow, now when it comes to, I was hoping this past weekend that I get to play some SFB, but things happened that I wasn't able to do that. Doug Howard, who usually runs the joint, he was in the hospital because of his gallbladder acted up, and they didn't, because he also has an issue with his heart. They weren't about to let him go home and then come back for the surgery. So they wanted to keep an eye on him. So he was in the hospital from the time he walked in that hospital, stayed at the ER for 17 hours. Yeah, it's that kind of crazy. So, people, if you're not vaccinated, get vaccinated. Protect yourself. Or if you're not vaccinated, then at the very least, mask up, protect yourself and protect others. Because currently there's a 17-hour wait time in the ER in Harrisburg, and that's not bad. At one point, it was 24 hours. That you had to spend 24 hours in ER to then get to you. Short of you in the middle, that you're about to die, you would not be that far up on the list. So, not exactly great. So, and this is Harrisburg. This is Pennsylvania. This is not where we're having huge outbreaks and so forth. But anyhow, he had the surgery. He's at home now. He got home yesterday. They yanked it out, his gallbladder, and so he's doing well. He's doing well. I'll probably talk to him this weekend. See how he's doing, because I've only texted his wife, Erica, who was so basically why I didn't get to play as much is that I've helped be at the front desk and help out. I got to play a couple games. Actually, how many games did I play? I played, of course, the one game with Barry, which was Starship Shuffle. Actually, that's an interesting cooperative game based on SpaceX and their whole thing. The weird mechanic about that game, you get this deck of 5 cards, which have the parts for the spaceship. And they don't face you. They face everybody else. So that's an interesting mechanic. So you got to guess. You have to pick up one, and then before you look at it, you have to say where you're going to put it. And you have a number of pads depending upon how much development cards you've gotten and so forth. Because one of the development cards is actually extra pads to actually build up your rockets. And you have more additional pads that means you can put something down without it being an accident, which is good. Because you have too many accidents, it fails. You're allowed 3 accidents and then like 3 strikes and you're out, that kind of thing. So I got to play that. Actually, I got to play some games with my godson, Doug, which is Doug Howard's son. We got to play multiple games. The one game that I wanted to play and he really wasn't that interested in, and he said he liked baseball, but he didn't quite understand the mechanics of the game, which is called Grand Slam. It's a baseball game. It's actually a very simple baseball game. I like it because it is simple. which is you have deck of cards, and what you do is each person gets, I think it's 5 cards, if I recall correctly. And you swap back and forth, you being at the plate or not. And then the idea is that you want to get runs around, so you'll get like a single or double on your cards, or you might get an out or a bunt or something like that. If you're on the opposite side, you want to get outs, so you don't want to do anything to achieve that. Now, like anything else, you get the squirreliness of this. And the squirreliness of the game, the cards, is that in some cases, there's some times where you're at bat, and the only thing you have in your hand is outs. So then you have an out to yourself. Or on the opposite side, you could actually be, in your defense, i.e. you're pitching, and you'll get, a single or a double, which you get, and you'll all you have is basically getting guys on base, which is what you don't want, but you have to put it down anyway, So it's kind of obviously that's square like that, but that's fine. I did get a baseball game called Stratomatic. I played a beginner part once, so that's kind of fun. But anyway, it would be interesting. I know that currently Starfleet Battle Force is a pretty simple game. Pretty simple. So it's like Federation Commander is pretty simple. And as you guys know, I've always SFU ships. That's what I call it. Which is the whole idea is take SFB FedCom and boil it down more. Boil it down to the basics, and in some cases even removing some of it. For example, I still want the idea of turn modes, but I don't want the impulse chart. But I like the whole idea of doing ordered turns. You plot out your whole turn. In this case, I'm thinking of 6 or 8 impulses. Wow. A group of 6? Mike is saying that he played Battle Force several times recently. It was amusing with a group of 6 of us. Yeah, actually, group of 6. I'm assuming you use double deck because you run out cards real fast with Battle Force. But yeah, I agree. Battle Force, especially in large groups, it can be a lot more fun. 2, it's okay, but I think the more the merrier. Though I think the optimum in my mind is 4. That's the optimum number of players for that game. Understood, Mike. Mike just mentioned that he'd like team play when possible, and I agree that's lots of fun. It just reminds me of Pinochle. Pinochle is one of those things that team play is lots of fun, and Lord knows we used to play. Oh, I love with Pinochle was double deck, and then if I recall correctly, you removed all like the 9s from the deck. I think I get that right. You play double deck and you play with 6 players, and it wouldn't be teams. In that case, it would be teams, but the whole idea was that each person was playing for themselves, but what would happen is that you get the bid and then you call for a card, and whoever was the first person in going around the table that had the card that you're looking for. That's your partner. So it's going to be two. It might be 2 against 3. Usually, when you do that, it's like 5. You can do 6, but that's about most I've ever seen us do is like 6. And so it'd be like 2 against 4 or 2 against 3. Yeah. Pinochle. I truly enjoy Pinochle. I have not played Pinochle for a while. That's something maybe I should see if I can get going at Gamers of Winter. Gamers of Summer. To see if maybe I can get together a group of people who would like to play some Pinochle, because it's been a while, and I grew up. I didn't grow up playing. I grew up playing a card game from Milwaukee called Sheep's Head. And Lord knows that one I have not played in years. I used to play Pinochle when I go visit my mother. I play with my brothers. We play it until like 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning is what we would do. It'd be late when we finished playing Pinochle, and we had a blast, Yeah, Pinochle decks they have Ace 10, King, Queen, Jack. Ace 10, King, Queen, Jack, and 9. That's it. I forget. I'm forgetting Sheep's Head when it comes to the decks. I think you might have took out certain cards for that. But that's been a long while. But Pinochle. I went to college, and I still remember every waking moment that my group of me and some friends in college, we get together and we play Pinochle as much as possible. In between classes, we play as much Pinochle as possible. In some cases, we only had 2 people, me and somebody else. And so we play 3-handed with a kitty, where you basically you shuffle and play the cards for 3 people, and then basically it's you against the other person. But then you get this third person. You take the cards that you dealt them and you just put them on the deck. You put them out, whether it makes a difference or not. Now remember, one thing with Pinochle is when it comes to playing the cards, they have rules. You can't just play any card you want. You have to. In the case of Pinochle, you have to play with the same, suit that was played. So if you play hearts, everyone has to play hearts. But if you don't have a heart, then you can play. Then you have to play trump. If you don't have trump, whatever that suit was for that hand, then you could play whatever you wanted. Also, you had to beat the card. So if someone played a queen, you had to play a king or an ace or a 10. So you had to beat it. Now, if you couldn't beat it, then you could play it below it. But you had to. If you could beat it, you had to beat it. And there were certain cards. Ace. Let me think. It was Ace, King, Ace 10. I think Ace 10 and King, if I recall correctly. Those were points. Those were pointers. Yeah, I said it's been a while. So Pinochle was a fun game, and I wish I had enough people around. Actually, for all I know, my neighbors might play Pinochle because they're kind of older. They're older than me. They're like in their 70s. So they might know. Now my parents' game, their game was bridge, which is, I've never actually played bridge myself, but I remember them getting together, getting their friends together, And they do it like, I forgot how often they would do it. I want to say once a month, but I know that's too often. I think it was like once every 2 or 3 months. I think like every 3 months, possibly maybe once a year. But I remember when they got together, they have 2 card tables. So there was 8 players. So my parents and then 3 other couples would come over, and I'm not sure they ate dinner, but they gave us food, and we would head upstairs, and because we weren't allowed basically to be around when they played, so we could either watch TV downstairs or we could be up in a room. And they'd have like nuts and things like that, and they'd have drinks and all that kind of things. They'd have a good old time. Yeah, actually, Mike, I used to play a little bit of cribbage myself. Actually, I got a cribbage board. I played cribbage a little bit. I haven't played it I had not played it since my college days. So, whatever. Interesting card games, See, that's the beauty of a deck of cards, in my mind, is that there's so many games you can play. You can play War. You can play Gin Rummy. You can play Sheep's Head. You can play. What is it called? Darn it! There's some other ones which are like Pinochle and so forth. I forget what it was called. Dang it! But there's so many games you can take out of just a plain deck of 52 cards. Of course, poker and blackjack. But those are betting games. I like bidding games. I've always I like, that's why I like Pinochle. It's I forget what else. It was called Points or something. I forget what. It's awful. I apologize for not remembering. But it's been so long since I played that game. I forget. I remember some of Sheep's Head when it comes to the points. I remember you had to get rid of a lot of cards. I think, as I said, it's been a long time. I might actually look that up when I'm done here. But anyhow, yeah. So, what topic for this evening? So, to me, this evening it's been a evening of rambling on about multiple things, from Starfleet Warlord to SFB Online to just life, and of course, card games. So with that, I think I will end this podcast, and I'll say goodnight to the chat room. Guys, it's been wonderful hanging out with you guys. Always a good time. So with that, I am Paul Franz, and I bid you a good night.